What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to be taking a look at something a little different. I have here with me Principia, All You Need. So Principia is the name of the system developed by Lightspress, which is sort of like the core gameplay system, which is behind the Gothic Horror, the Simple Approach book that we took a look at in my first a Great Ghastly Affair video when we were creating our character. If you take a look at that video, we use this book a little bit to come up with some character stuff, and this also has setting and plot hook stuff, all in this sort of Gothic horror theme. But it's one of many books that covers a specific theme, which is supplemental material for Principia, the Simple Approach. Now here I have Principia, All You Need, which is just an 8-page sort of summary that is available for free on DriveThruRPG. It's a summary of the system. I don't have the full system. I'd love to. I'm saving up for it. But for now, I do have this little condensed version. And I thought, since we took a look at Gothic Horror, the Simple Approach in my Ghastly Affair series, episode 1, that it might be cool to take this system and, using this system, do an actual play of a session, and of course use Gothic Horror, the Simple Approach, to sort of build up the character and setting and plot, and then use the Principia system to play through a session. So that's what I'm going to do today. So let's go ahead and start getting stuff together. I have not played with this yet. I've read it a couple times, so I feel like I have a good understanding of it. It is fairly simple. It's only 8 pages. But we're going to go ahead and do something, of course, it's going to be Gothic Horror themed. And let's find some blank pages here. That'll do. And yeah, so it'll be interesting. We'll see how this plays out. I'm going to use my normal resources. I've got my dice ready. I've got my Game Master's Apprentice cards. I'm going to use the 2nd edition set and the Weird Horror set, of course. And with just those cards to sort of be the backbone of the emulating a GM section of solo play, I'll use this for the system, and then I will use the supplementary materials for all of the context and such. So I guess we're going to want to start by creating a character. And so we won't... Well, yeah, let's take a look at this first. So I'm not going to read through this whole thing. You can check it out if you'd like to. But essentially, it actually kind of reminds me of Tricube Tales. It's very simple. You just use 6-sided dice, and the number of 6-sided dice you use is related to the level you are in a given skill that would be relevant to a given challenge. And so, pretty straightforward stuff. You've got a challenge. The difficulty of that challenge is decided on a scale of 1 to 5. And then you get to roll as many dice as your skill level in a certain skill, which is also, I believe, 1 to 5. And yeah, let's see, traits, rate from 1 to 5. And you start, let's see, you get 5 traits. Your character gets an archetype trait, identity, strength, weakness, and drive trait. And as a novice character, you get 5 points to spread between those. So I'm probably going to do 1 in each, but we'll see. We'll see how the character unfolds. But anyway, you get to roll as many dice as you have levels of that trait. And you're actually going to determine your success or failure based on how many times the difficulty score can fit in the total of your dice. So, for example, let's say that I'm a brawler and I'm very strong and I want to crash through a door that's locked. I want to shoulder slam it open. I might get to roll 2 dice because I'm a level 2 strongman, and then the GM would say this difficulty level is maybe like, I think it said the scale is 1 to 5, with 3 being standard. Let's say it's just a normal door. So the difficulty level is 3. I'm level 2 in that skill, so I get to roll 2 dice. You roll the dice, and however many times you can fit your difficulty score into the total, that's how many successes you have. So I think it's kind of neat because you actually get a scale of successes. It's not just that I succeeded here or that I got a critical success. It's that I succeeded twice. And so that's going to sort of scale the results of the action based on whether you fail or whether you succeed once or twice or 3 times. So for instance, let's say it was an average door difficulty 3, but I'm level 3, and I rolled, we'll say I rolled something like this, where it's 12. That means I would have succeeded 4 times. So it's a level 4 success, if you will. So lots of success. So it might be that not only did I break through the door, but the door slammed into the gargoyle or the goblin on the other side and crushed him. And so it's like a 2 birds with 1 stone. It was a pretty great job slamming through that door. So that's really it. That's how the system works. So it's all based around, you have your character, you've got their 5 separate traits, and whatever level those traits are determines how many dice you roll. And the context of the situation determines the difficulty based on what the GM might say. So really, really straightforward. I really do like the idea of having multiple levels of success. It adds a little bit more flexibility. It's like having an oracle chart where you can have, like in many games, you either succeed or you fail. So it's like a yes or a no oracle chart. But then there's also critical failure and critical success. So it's like a yes and, or a no and a no and. But if you have an oracle chart where it's like yes, yes, and yes, but no, no, but no, and sort of like a broader scale, gives you a little bit more room to sort of have interesting things happen as results instead of it being more black and white. So I do like that about the system. We'll see how it plays. We're going to go ahead and create a character. There's also hero points. So when you fail, you earn a hero point. And a hero point can be spent before you roll to be able to roll an extra die. And you can only have as many hero points as you have your character level. And there's 1 to 5 are the character levels. So you start out level 1, you can only have up to 1 hero point. So whenever you fail, you'll get your hero point back. And you can choose to use it, like I said, before you make your rolls. And let's see, other than that, the rest of the stuff inside of here is more about interpretation. So interpreting outcomes, is the outcome going to add to the story? So a narrative thing is going to happen that's non-mechanical, or there's creating advantage or creating disadvantage, and those are basically some very very specific advantage or disadvantages gained that revolves around a specific action or a specific situation or relationship. So it's not like a broad success or a broad advantage that can be applied in many places. It's more like very specific, like you found a piece of evidence that is very specific to this one person that has them at this scene of this crime, and so when you talk to that person, you have a very specific advantage with them because of that, as opposed to like finding a pistol that you can use whenever you want in many, many different situations. Something like that. Anyway, so those are the rest of it's just more interpretive stuff. How do you have a success or a failure change the story? And it gives examples. But yeah, other than that, let's start creating a character. That's going to be our main thing. We're going to use the Gothic Horror, the simple approach, to come up with this character. Now, there's even more detail inside here. So with the Principia, we need the 5 traits, right? It was archetype, identity, strength, weakness, and drive. With these supplementary texts that they provide on the website, you get to expand that. So character actually comes with also personality and appearance, which are both, I guess you'd say flavor, but they do, they would affect how the character acts in situations. They got drives, and yeah, that's it. So the 2 additional ones in here, personality and appearance, we're probably not going to be as much concerned with those because I do want to be able to get a good amount of playtime with this system in without getting bogged down in character creation for an hour. So we're going to try and make this pretty brisk as far as setting up our character. And so we'll get right into it. Archetypes. Who is this character? Let's go. All right. So, character creation. Now this book, I love the way it's set up. You go over the archetype and then it gives you 20 examples, right? So you can roll a d20 on this to get one of these pre-chosen examples, but it also has a bit of explanation beforehand to give you a sense of how you could expand these or do your own. But we'll go ahead and use one that's already here in the chart. We rolled a 6, so that's going to be a mad visionary. Mad visionary. Dreams, symbols, and revelations define your world. What others call madness, you insist is truth. Prophecy shapes each choice, whether divine or delusional. You risk sanity every time you trust the vision, but ignoring them feels impossible. Creation and destruction blur, leaving you trapped in a spiral of inspiration. All right, mad visionary. So that's our archetype. Let's see, how is that going to affect us here? How do we want to define that? Let's say that we have a character who is very insistent, or they have lots of visions, like it says in here. We have lots of visions, and we're certain that we can see the future, and we can divine things from these visions that we're constantly having. And because they are so ubiquitous in our lives, we're constantly having them, that we've sort of our entire identity is built around this, like we're constantly seeing what's going to happen. So we're always on the lookout for the clues that we've seen in our visions. And yeah, could drive a person mad, potentially. So let's see. Constant visions. And think they can divine the future, etc. Pretty cool. So we're a mad visionary. Underline that. Next up, we roll. I'm not going to roll. Well, let's roll for personality. Why not? We're not going to go into too much depth on it because it's not mechanically as important. It's more narratively important. But I should say that this is a system that is meant to be narrative driven, kind of like Tri-Cube Tales. This is about the narrative. The mechanics are very pared down so that you can focus on the narrative. But anyway, personality 15, reckless daredevil. All right, so we take these visions and we just like roll with it, no matter what the consequence might be. Reckless daredevil. All right. So mad visionary. We are going to. I got to remind me. You people of the future, I need to set the level for these traits before we can start playing. I'll figure it out eventually if I forget. All right, so let's go on to appearance. 5, gaunt frame. That's exactly what I was imagining. Gaunt frame. Hunger, grief, and endless wandering carves angles into your body. Nice. Alright, so, and this is personality, and this is appearance. Make note of those because we don't need to have levels for those because they are not mechanically relevant. Alright, now on to identity. More important here. So 15. 15 is going to be a devoted parent. Love for child shapes every act. Even when horror surrounds you, protection drives choices, though survival often forces compromise. Companions admire devotion, though they fear a burden it creates. You define self through care, binding future to fragile hope that the next generation might escape scars. All right, so we're a devoted parent. And this one's pretty self-explanatory, so I guess we have a child. Could be a blood child, could be adopted, could be a niece or nephew or something. We will leave that there. Yeah, this is going to be very important. Obviously, that's going to frame every choice we make, because we're always going to be looking out for the best interests of our child. All right, and if we go to strengths, I rolled a 20. Dark allure. Dark allure. Shadows cling to you with seductive gravity. Others feel attraction mingled with dread. Unable to look away, companions distrust power, yet they sense its usefulness. Allure opens paths but invites corruption. Since fascination often twists into obsession, what draws others near may also ensure their undoing. Dark allure. So maybe people are drawn to our visionary nature and our sort of mad, obsessive, very passionate, personality when it comes to the visions that we have and the concern over our child and just how devoted we are to this whole thing that makes up us as far as our archetype and our identity. The dark allure is going to be useful, it sounds like, for drawing people in to whatever, like we could almost be a cult leader, it seems like, right? We're the kind of person that's having all these crazy visions, and devoted parent perhaps could be our devotion to our quote-unquote children. Yeah, maybe we're coming up with a cult leader here, and our dark allure is people are drawn to us. And I guess I keep changing person. Up here I'm talking in third person, here I'm talking in second person plural. That's all right, we get the picture. So people are drawn to us. Let's see. We have power over people, over the devoted, which is bolstered by our visions and our just ecstatic passion. All right, let's see what our weakness is going to be. 5, doomed love. Ooh, I kind of see where this is going. Doomed love. Affection ties you to someone cursed, absent, or unattainable. Hope keeps you moving, but loss feels inevitable. Companions pity devotion while fearing consequence. Horror exploits this weakness, twisting love into peril. Desire sustains but destroys, ensuring the heart's longing binds you to an endless cycle of grief. I feel like this would be going along with our little cult leader story here, or character that we're developing. This is something like the absent god. This whatever god it is, or creature, or being, or demon, or force that we've built this cult around, built our visions around, so sort of developed this whole framework around, or seen as like the pinnacle or result of all this framework, is somehow always out of reach. We can't quite find that relationship with this god or spirit or force that we're so drawn to. So yeah, we'll go with that. And then drives, 20. Drives, crusade against evil. You dedicate yourself to destroying corruption wherever it lurks. Every act frames the world as battlefield, and you won't rest until darkness falls. Companions may admire resolve, yet fear extremity. This devotion brings courage, but it blinds you to nuance, ensuring even allies risk becoming collateral. All right, so crusade against evil. We could also adjust this a little bit to be a crusade against, well, evil, right? Evil's relative. I'm going to put that in quotes. Whatever it is that's the antithesis of this specific cult devotion to this god or spirit or whatever the case may be. All right, so that is the character, and so then it moves on to setting. Before we move on to setting, do we need any more characters? This is our main character. I'm going to come up with a name real quick using my little cards that I've developed here. That's a little on the nose. I'm going to go with Lucius. Lucius. Let's say, put his name up here. That's a good name for a cult leader. Lucius. We'll say Lucius, the cult leader. Lucius, the cult leader. So it seems like we kind of need to define maybe the god or whatever this. We need to find the cult a little bit. But there's a section in here after settings is the factions. Let's see. Yeah, factions are defined next. So we'll actually be able, I think, to define this cult in the factions section, and we can sort of define it in the context of some of the things we've established here: a crusade against evil, or we'll say opposition. But yeah, we can use that to flesh out the cult. And in the meantime, though, I don't know that we're going to go fully into settings. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. You've got your setting types, the openness, the resources, the insights, the weirdness, the agency and the moral clarity, and the faction. No, we're into factions. And the moral clarity as the last one. So there's a whole lot of vectors that you can use to define your settings with this manual, and I think it's pretty awesome. I have gone through and used every single one. I think in this playthrough, I'm going to keep it to setting types, and let's see, are there any others I would want to do? Maybe weirdness, or moral clarity, but let's just start here with our setting type. So we'll go type. And let's roll. Again, it goes over broad strokes of setting in Gothic Horror and then defines specifically the setting type and what that means. And then gives you some examples. So we're going to use 5. Remote Mountain Pass. It's a good place for a cult. Remote Mountain Pass. So we have sheer cliffs loom above, and narrow trails vanish into storms that silence every voice. Villagers cling to life in huts that seem carved from the rock itself. Fearful of travelers. Wolves and avalanches are threats, but older whispers speak of shapes moving when snow blinds the eyes. The mountains hold secrets that even the earth seems unwilling to release. So maybe it's the case that our cult set up here in this very isolated location. It's isolated and it's oppressive. So it's a good place for a cult, because then you're very dependent. You don't really have much choice but to stay where the cult resides, where the cult is set up, with the amenities that they have set up and the protections that they have set up from this oppressive atmosphere. So they set up here for the isolation and the oppressive environment. And it sounds like there's rumors of powers and forces and things that go beyond, like it said, your normal wolves and avalanches and your normal mountain pass obstacles and adversaries. There's whispers and rumors of some other power here, and so maybe it's a site of power, and we latched onto this location because of the rumors of what else might be here and what greater powers might exist here. So, and rumors of great forces, powers. and we'll put fear among locals. All right, I think we'll call that good for the setting, and because I need to not make sure I'm not showing you guys this entire book. We move on to the faction section here. They give Gothic Horror its special spine, scales and forms, core functions, genre logic. All right, well, I think with factions as well, yeah, this one goes into really nice detail about how the factions play. We might need 2 factions, right? So we've got our cult factions. Remote Mountain Pass. Factions, so we've got first the cult. And let's define it a little bit. The categories are faction type, cultural impact, influence, knowledge, knowledge and innovation, mobility and reach, power projection, and secrecy. And each of these, again, there's a paragraph or 2 defining each of these and what those exactly mean. But I just love the depth that you get with this book. You really, like I said, I've gone through it a few times and created character settings, factions, and plot beats based on every single vector that's provided here. And the way that the thing you're creating shapes and becomes so full and rich is really impressive. And it's nice to use random rolls because you never know like what it's going to be. You know, you might at first roll something and you're like, oh, that seems antithetical to what I was going for. But then as it comes along or at a certain point, you just have that inspiration. You're like, oh, you know, this makes sense. This actually makes it a much more interesting and richer sort of situation, setting, character, faction, whatever the case may be. But in any case, let's start with faction types. We'll roll for one of those. I rolled a 6. Secret Inquisition. I guess that sounds about right. Secret Inquisition. All right, so hidden judges pursue witches, heretics, and supposed monsters, wielding trials that spread terror. Their courts thrive on spectacle and punishment, turning faith into paranoia. The group may bargain for mercy, endure accusation, or work to unmask their cruelty, or your group. Each path binding storylines to the iron grip of judgment. All right, so that makes sense. So iron grip, rule by fear, public executions or trials to just make sure everyone stays afraid. All right, sounds very cult-like. I like that. Let's see, do we want to go with any other? We'll skip over cultural impact. I think to help us sort of define the nature of, rather than like the way the cult behaves, but the nature of the sort of religious or mythological element of this group, we'll do knowledge and innovation. Let's go ahead and roll for that. I rolled a 4. So maps of forbidden paths. Cartographers chart cursed lands and shadowed ruins, selling knowledge that invites disaster. Villagers treat these maps as dangerous yet tempting. Drawn to promises of treasure or truth, the group may use them to navigate horror, knowing every line inked on parchment binds story to risk. Okay, so we have maps of forbidden paths. So I'm going to put cartographers. So maybe this cult is at sort of like a pass. It's a mountain pass, right? So they're at this sort of like this space that is like the threshold from the from civilization into this unknown land. And maybe they, like it said, for the Inquisition part, it said they hunt they hunt down everything from witches to things like monsters, right, or perceived monsters. So I'm going to put hunt monsters. Their job is to create and preserve maps, or cartographers create and preserve maps. Let's see, let's read this again. Cartographers chart cursed lands and shadowed ruins. Okay. Let's cross that out. I'm going to put chart the wilds beyond the pass. And their goal is to hunt the quote-unquote monsters on the other side and simultaneously spread influence and quote-unquote civilization in the wildlands. Let's call it the wilds. Quote. All right. So we're this secret inquisition that is sort of at the intersection between the civilized world and the wilds. We're strategically placed on this pass, and so we sort of act as a sort of buffer between civilization and the wilds, but we're also trying to spread into these wilds and spread our influence and spread the cult message. And we do that through destroying these monsters that are on the other side. And perhaps, for some reason, I'm getting visions of Omega Man or I Am Legend, where I guess I don't want to spoil that movie if you haven't seen it. It's pretty cool twist at the end of that movie. But that's kind of the vibe I'm getting. But I see these guys as I see them as a morally evil cult. I see this as an evil cult that is going into these wild, quote-unquote, uncivilized lands and killing the local creatures that live there. And I'm kind of getting a vibe that the creatures that live there are, though perceived as monsters by this cult, are actually, maybe it's like orcs or goblins or some sort of humanoid race that lives on the other side. And so it's very easy for them to demonize this other race of beings. And yeah, I think that's kind of how it's coming together. I don't know if I wanted to find anything else for this cult. Let's go ahead and I'm going to use the cult charts to roll up for the wilds, the creatures of the wilds. So I'm going to put inhabitants of the wilds. Now this might be a bit problematic. We might end up rolling some other evil faction because it is Gothic Horror after all. So, all right, let's roll for a faction type. 18. Society of Anatomists. Physicians dissect corpses in candlelit halls, claiming pursuit of truth while stripping dignity from the dead. Their halls mix science with dread, where knowledge saves yet horrifies. You meet them at margins and at morgues and colleges, facing dilemmas where discovery and violation weigh equally on story and consequence. Okay, so maybe the inhabitants of the wilds. We're going to say Society of Anatomists. So maybe they have some sort of practice that they do with their dead that is perceived potentially by the people of the quote-unquote civilized side of the past as barbaric or evil or, like I said, stripping dignity from the dead. But in reality, it's just sort of a cultural practice. So maybe I'm going to put some sort of, quote, barbaric practice around the bodies of the dead. Okay. Because I do want to, I'm really trying to push and lean and make sure these inhabitants aren't outright evil. Bodies of the dead. All right. I think that's good enough for factions, and that brings us to plot hooks. All right. So once again, an overview of stories and how story and plot function in Gothic horror. And then we get into plot hooks, and then there's stakes, obstacles, antagonists, supporting characters, plot twists, extrinsic rewards, and then genre tools, and that brings us to the end of it. So I'm going to go with a plot hook here, just to figure out what our story about or involving all these factions and this character are. So let's go with plot hook. All right. 17. The Claimed Soul. All right. The Claimed Soul. All right. An outside force asserts control, seeking to erase will or body. Every scene turns into a battle for autonomy. Each choice carving identity against possession. Even victory leaves scars, ensuring survival carries the memory of violation and forcing your group to confront the cost of control. An outside force asserts control, seeking to erase will or body. All right, so we've got our mad visionary who's a devoted parent to their cultists, has a dark allure which makes them good at being a cult leader, doomed love, so they're unable to reach unity or unification with their god or contact with their god, and they're in a crusade against what they perceive to be evil. Every scene turns into a battle for autonomy, each choice carving identity against possession. Maybe the mad visionary is actually going mad. Let's see here. Maybe we can flesh this out with some of the other... Maybe we'll roll for an antagonist. Yeah, let's roll for an antagonist. 8. The Hollow Bride, bound to vows that curdle into despair. She wanders halls of grief. Her presence corrupts joy, and every touch spreads cold. She embodies promises broken and love turned into torment, making her as tragic as she is terrifying. She offers temptation, surrender to sorrow or suffer resistance. Okay, so I think I know how this is going to work. So I'm thinking that the antagonist, the Hollow Bride, is the wife of an inhabitant of the wilds that was taken and executed by the cultists, by our main character, Lucius. And so she's on a path of revenge, and she's been driven mad and has her own set of certain powers to sort of mesmerize people. And what she did is she led a party or used her mesmerizing abilities, or somehow she infiltrated the cult and kidnapped Lucius. Originally I was going to say kidnapped or stole some item or object of power that could act as a MacGuffin. Yeah, probably we'll go with that. or maybe has taken some of the children of Lucius, some of the cultists. So I feel like it's more than just, I need to be taken more than just claimed. It has to be something very important that affects Lucius deeply, like potentially as like some sort of nexus of his power, or something that keeps Lucius sane. Since he's a mad visionary, perhaps there's some artifact or something of power that Lucius has to stay nearby to maintain what little sanity is left. And if he's not near this nexus of power, the visions become so overwhelming that they become reality. So Lucius really needs to... we're going to put Lucius's power nexus has been stolen by the Hollow Bride, this almost mythical, scorned or wronged woman from the wilds. Mythical sorceress, we'll say. Mythical sorceress with a grudge. Okay. Okay, so I like that. So we've got our character, Lucius, and we're going to give him one. Let's say he's level... I'm going to say he's level 2. That way we have a little bit more to work with. Alright, so if we go ahead and we can close this up now. We're done with the Gothic Horror, a simple approach. And we're just going to be now looking at playing the actual game. So I did want to look here at... what was I looking for? Oh yeah, the traits. 1 to 5. Pool of points tied to experience level. So level 2 would be a beginner, gets 10 points to distribute. So I'm going to say 3 on Mad Visionary. Dark Allure is going to be 2. Doomed Love. So that's going to be 2. Crusade Against Evil, we'll say, is 1. And that leaves, let's see, 7, 8, 2. So 2 to Devoted Parent.